devil in the Munich church. Long ago, in the year 1494 in Bavaria, the sun rose slowly above the rooftops of Munich, and its golden light flooded the city. It was a morning that filled the people with awe, for the great Munich church now stood completed at last. Its two towers rose like mighty guardians into the sky, as if they wished to protect the entire city. Above the rooftops of the citizens' houses the red roof of the church glowed, and countless windows caught the morning light, so that it seemed as though the building itself was a vessel of divine glory. Men, women, and children paused in the streets, pointed with their hands at the proud work, and whispered excitedly about the greatness that now adorned their home. Some folded their hands in prayer, others crossed themselves, and in their eyes shone reverence. They did not see only stone and mortar, they saw a sign from heaven, a new house of God in their midst. Yet deep in the abyss of hell, something stirred. The devil himself, who through the centuries had tried to destroy countless houses of God, learned that here a new fortress against him had been erected. Every prayer spoken in that church would mean a soul lost to him. Every candle lit seemed to him like a blow against his dominion, and so he swore in his fury that he would not stand idly by. Then a female demon approached him. Her name was Succubus, the demon of seduction and sexual lust. She wrapped her arms around the devil and looked up at him. "My lord, do not let wrath consume you so," she whispered in a voice full of temptation. "Look how foolish men are. Yes, they have built a church, but are they not weak, sinful, and easily led astray? They will fall into your net as they always have." The devil only growled in anger, a sound that echoed through all of hell. He spoke of the threat this house of God represented, of how it would turn human hearts away from his temptations. But Succubus did not withdraw. Instead, she pressed closer, her words flowing like sweet smoke. "And even if they pray there, are you not always stronger, my lord?" she asked. The devil glared at her, no peace in his eyes. His decision was made. He would bring ruin upon the church and upon its visitors, whatever the cost. That very night he left hell and entered the world of men. Taking on human form, he appeared before the new church. The back door was unguarded, and with a look full of hatred he slipped inside. He walked between the towering columns and saw the congregation gathered, a choir standing near the altar singing their hymns. The devil looked about the church. To his astonishment he saw no windows at all, for the mighty pillars concealed them from view. The devil began to laugh, a hideous laugh, as his face took on demonic features once more. "What folly of mankind," he thought. "A building without light is useless. They have deceived themselves. A house shrouded in darkness cannot save anyone." Rocked in his own self-satisfaction, he felt certain that the church was worthless. He turned and left, confident that the house of God would pose no threat to his kingdom. Yet at the very place where he had stood, he pressed his foot so violently into the stone that it left behind a black imprint. But soon his mistake became clear. The very next day the people once again flocked into the church. They knelt in the pews, prayed with folded hands, and sang hymns that filled the entire space. Their voices rose like bright beams of light, and the candles upon the altar burned unshaken. The devil, who tried to enter again, struck against an invisible barrier. For now that the church had been consecrated, no unholy being could set foot inside, and to his fury he now saw from outside that the church did indeed have windows. He cried out in rage so loudly that the heavens darkened, and he unleashed his hatred. Casting off his disguise, he took on his true form, spreading his black wings against the storm. Lightning flashed around him, and his roaring made the clouds tremble. He hurled great tempests against the Munich church, hoping to bring it crashing down, but he could not, for the power of God protected it. He churned the winds until men and women could hardly walk upright. The devil stood menacingly within the storm, laughing mockingly, hoping to frighten the people away from the church. Yet the citizens of Munich would not be driven off. They came again and again to Holy Mass, and despite the raging wind, they entered the church where their prayers and songs echoed all the more strongly. At last, the devil was forced to yield, and he returned to hell. There he sank heavily upon a jagged rock, his wings exhausted, his breath quivering with fury. The fires of hell flickered all around him. Long he sat in silence, yet the rage within him burned like a fire that would never be extinguished. Then Succubus came once more, the female demon who had spoken to him before. She lay at his side, laid her hand upon his chest, and whispered, "My lord, torment yourself no longer. Mankind is weak, they will never be free of your power. A single church changes nothing." She lay with him almost like a lover, her glowing red eyes fixed upon him as she spoke. "You are the Lord of darkness, the Prince of the night. No church and no prayer can take that from you." Her voice was like sweet poison, soothing and alluring, and she pressed herself closer, as if to transform the fire of his rage into fire of another kind. But the devil turned away, his jaw clenched, and his silence was more terrible than his roar. Though he allowed succubus to remain by his side, his eyes were fixed upon the flames which mirrored the unrest inside of him, for deep in his dark heart he knew he had lost the battle for this house of God. And yet, a trace of his fury remained. To this day, within the Munich church lies the dark footprint of the devil, pressed into the stone, the so-called devil's step. Many visitors still shudder when they behold the black mark, for they know, here once stood the devil, the prince of hell, who thought the church a folly, but he was wrong. Thus the Munich church bears not only the towers that rise watchfully over the city, but also a mark of triumph, proof that even the devil can be defeated and driven away. And when the wind whistles fiercely around its walls, the people of Munich still say, it is the devil himself storming about the Munich church, still raging over his defeat.